Welcome back, everyone. Thanks a lot for coming back. Thanks a lot for sticking with me. Glad you're so far from most of the comments. It seems like everybody's enjoying the videos thus far. The last one was a little bit quicker than the Fast Tracks Turnout Jig. That was definitely the longest marathon thus far. Today will be a little bit shorter, and it's going to be about storage. I think we all end up accruing way more locomotives and freight cars and passenger cars and all that kind of stuff than our layouts can usually support. And then especially if you're in a club and you've got your club cars that you take with you to the club, or you've got your own personal layout, or friends have layouts and you take your rolling stock over there. You got storage needs. I don't really transport my collection generally. My layout is my layout, but even despite adding the yard recently, I still have a lot of cars that I've accrued over the years that I just can't have on the layout all at the same time. If I pack the yard full, it wouldn't be manageable. You'd have no place to switch cars. They say you're only supposed to have the yard at 50% capacity, so you have room to move things around. And then the layout, I've reduced how many freights that I have excuse me, on the layout at one time. So despite having more room in the yard, I actually have less trains out on the layout, just because I don't like the congestion of 3 trains sitting and one running kind of thing. So anyway, so what I thought I'd talk about today is just a couple of different storage options. You know me, I like to save money where I can, so I have what I'll call a sort of free option, if you will. And there's a lot of free options out there, but one of the things that I'm always keen on is, especially if you start to detail your engines, or you're buying the new engines with a lot of details on them, restoring them back in their original containers is okay, especially with the new clamshell style that protects the sides of the engines. But sometimes I find that taking them in and out of the packaging, I don't know, I don't like it, and that's just me personally. I'd rather have it readily accessible, and so I have an engine storage solution, I've got freight car storage solution, and then I've got kind of the inexpensive solution, which I thought I'd start with, and we'll go from there. Alright, so first, the quote-unquote free or inexpensive version. So this isn't a motherboard unboxing video now. This is actually, and you can tell if you're into building PCs or into computers, that an Athlon XP, Athlon, or Duron processor, this is a really old box. But I like to build computers for people, so over the years I've collected a lot of motherboard boxes, and these are actually really helpful because their clamshell design, with the fold and close lid, and then just this type of opening, they're the right thickness. Now keep in mind this is all HO scale, since that's what I do. So these might be a little bit thick for N scale. However, if you were modeling N scale, this actually still would work. You could layer a group on there, down on the bottom, a piece of cardboard cut to the right size, and then a group on top. So one thing that I do have in here, I just took some old bubble wrap and some bubble wrap on the bottom, and as you can see, they're just laid in here. Not the most ideal. Again, this wouldn't be good for transporting, but easy enough to space them out, and with the bubble wrap in here, that helps put a little bit of pressure when the lid is closed, kind of keeps them in place. And I wouldn't go about shaking this about, but even if I give it a slight jostle, they don't move a whole lot. As you can see, they kind of stayed in their spot. Now I will say that one of the downsides to this type of bubble wrap is that if this is a long-term storage solution, you should really have a piece of even something as simple as saran wrap or something, just a piece of plastic, straight piece of plastic, because the bubbles of the bubble wrap will actually start to interact with the paint and can actually end up ruining it. And there was an article in Model Railroader a while back where Cody Grivno talked about that, and he showed some pictures of damage to the paint. These I've risked it. I really should have plastic in here, but I don't. But so far these are okay. I will say that I do come in and occasionally do run these cars, so they do get moved. If it's a temporary solution and they're not stored for long periods of time, you should be fine. And if you can, and you could store them with the wheels down, then you wouldn't have to worry about it at all. So this is storage solution number one, and if you can get a hold of these boxes, I really like them. They're great just for portability. They're small, easy to store on a shelf, and they tuck away. Even if you know somebody that builds computers, you go to a local computer store and ask if they've got these boxes laying around, and they're just going to throw them out anyway. Ask if you can have them, and there you go. And actually, some of the newer motherboards they're quite a bit thicker because they come with all this fancy heat sinks and all that kind of stuff. So you can get some good boxes from that location. So, all right, on to option number two. All right, so this is a rather large box, but the same basic features and designs of the motherboard box. It's again, it's a clamshell with a kind of a closing lid. However, this is commercially made, and I got these at a train show, Train Fest actually. Economically, I guess that for me was the best, because this is a rather large box, and if you buy several of these, unfortunately they're really light, but their size can drive the shipping cost up. So I almost would recommend seeing if you can search these out at your local hobby shop, or when you're at a train show or something like that. I've seen these vendors at Train Fest several times, and I know they've Mad City in Madison, Wisconsin, they've got them. So, but what kind of differentiates these from the motherboard option would be that they're made for this. So this is the HO scale one. They make, this particular manufacturer makes N scale, O scale, S, but they actually foam line them with just this black foam, and they also include two plastic sheets. And this is what I was mentioning before. So to avoid this foam interacting with your paint of your models, they include these two sheets. There's one on top here, and then there's one on the bottom as well. So you can easily lay the cars on top of everything, and you don't have to worry about them chemically reacting for any reason with the foam underneath. I really like these. They're made such that they're, the depth between the foam layers is just about right. So if you've got box cars, or as you can see here, any car that has a standard width, it will kind of capture it between. And these are really stable. These are good for portability, because once they are captured in, and it might be hard to see, but there are imprints of the car sides on the foam, and that helps keep them in place even with the plastic. The plastic makes them a little bit more slippery, but there's enough force in between the two layers that the cars won't shift around. Now, you can't go tipping them, and you couldn't ship in these, but if you were going to a train show or to a buddy's house, these are good for that. I just kind of pick them up, put them in storage where I need them, but they still stay secure. So this one isn't fully loaded, but I think, if you looked at it, you could probably fit about 25-ish 60-foot boxcars in here. So depending on what you're looking to store, more or less of things, depending on the height of the cars, depending on the length. If you have all center beams or 86-foot, covered auto racks, obviously you're not going to get as much in here. Now the downside, and I used to store my engines in here, but the downside to me was the clamping nature of the foam. And when you've got a lot of delicate details on the sides of your engines, which isn't often, but sunshades, all-season windows, grab irons, you know, whatever it might be, whatever brittle details might be on the sides of these units. Once you clamp these down, that's putting pressure on, and if you stack these boxes up, now you're getting a little bit more added pressure, compressing these. And I just found that I would take an engine out and I'd find a detail broken off, and I thought about carving out like voids in the foam itself, but then that just became too tedious. Like, okay, where does this one go? And now you're labeling it, and since I don't transport and take my stuff elsewhere, I thought, okay, these can be for my freight cars, and that's what these became. This is my freight car storage. So, you know, pick and choose, put stuff back in, lay the plastic back over, cover it back up, and you're good to go. So similar to the free version of the motherboard, but just a little bit bigger, 25 cars instead of what was the motherboard box, was 6, maybe 7 if you're lucky. So a lot more room in these. So that's the second solution. Now for the third, I'll say final for me at least, storage of my engines. Okay, like I said, you can use the boxes that your locomotives came in. By all means, the new clamshell designs that they're including are a lot more detail friendly, I'll say. However, I like the freedom of having a easier access. In my opinion, if you've got to work to get something out, you're going to avoid using it. And if you can make things simpler, I know that makes me sound a little bit lazy, but when I'm working on the layout, I don't have a lot of time, and I want to swap engines on and off the layout, and I kind of don't want to spend a lot of extra time fiddling with boxes and stuff like that. So actually I saw these being used on another YouTuber's video, and unfortunately it was during my lull in shooting, and I contacted him and I said, where'd you get those? But unfortunately I would love to credit that user, but now I can't remember who it was. So my apologies. If you're watching this video and you know that I contacted you and asked you about these, well, please comment down below and I'll give you credit where credit is due. But this is just a Sterlite, but a Sterilite, I guess you'd call them. I got these from Target. They were $12, 3 drawer, and this is just the right height. If we take a look at the height of them, you're looking at about almost 3 inches from the bottom to, it's about 2 3/4, but it's the perfect height to fit your locomotives standing straight up. These are not for transportability. You drop this and your locomotives are toast, which might shy some people away. But again, I don't take my locomotives anywhere, so this works for me. The other downside to these, if you were to pull all 3 of these drawers out fully loaded, it will tip forward. So you could easily put, you know, kind of glue this to something, you know, hot glue or whatever, just to secure it in case you ever did that. I don't know why you'd have all 3 drawers open at once, but in case that ever happened. So then, but the beauty of it is you can see here, it does have stops to keep the drawers from coming out, and but the drawers are long enough, and so if you take, for instance, this guy here, which is one of my longest units that I have, or even this SD50, both of these are longer, but they fit plenty well, and you got to be a little careful when you get them in and out, but they do fit. So the downside to this is that you are taking them and trying to fit them in under here, and for shorter units, you know, no big deal. You can lift them in and out, and it won't be an issue. But you can see, like with this longer guy, you kind of got to be careful as you take it in and out. But the beauty is, once it's in, you don't have to worry about anything. As long as this is stationary, they won't tip over. At least it shouldn't. You can see I can fit 6 units across, and if you had smaller units, you might be able to rearrange things a little bit differently. But here you can see another bin. So each one has about the room for 6. So easy access. Again, I like this because it's got easy access. I can get locomotives in and out quickly and get them on the layout and up and running. The one thing I did do to these was I added a piece of foam. It's just craft foam that you can get at Michael's or Target or wherever, and I hot glued it to the bottom, and it just gives the locomotive wheels something to kind of bite into. And if you look at some of these, some of the heavier units have started to just leave an impression. I don't know if you're going to be able to see that, but there's an impression in there. And what I like about that is on the plastic itself of this drawer, the units would slide around as you took them in and out, or as you pulled the drawers in and out. But with the foam in there, the wheels sit on the foam, and they're kind of, you know, they're a little bit more stationary. They don't slide around that way, which helps keep them in place. So pretty well. So, and you could stack these a couple high, and at $12 they're pretty inexpensive. So you figure 6 per drawer, 3 drawers, so 18 units per drawer, or per set of drawers is not too bad. Okay, so actually I forgot I have a fourth and super secret option here, and this was a box I found. Again, you can see I'm kind of addicted to these this style of box, and you can see I also kind of let everybody know what's in here, even though I'm pretty much the only one that'll ever probably pick these up. But anyway, this I don't know where I got this box, but again, same style with the fold and close lid here. But what I did was I took some old cardboard boxes. I took some of that foam decoration or craft foam. I lined the bottom, the sides, and then I used some cardboard to create separators. And you know, you could easily, I could fit two engines in here. The downside to this one, though, was I couldn't have like that FP45 and an SD50 next to, you know, end to end here. There was just not enough room. So this became a length issue. If you have shorter units, you probably get away with it, like all 4-axle units, no problem. You could easily fit. A shorter SD40s would fit just fine. And then what I did up top here is I took an old plastic bag and filled it with some polyfill, you know, just like what you'd get in side of a stuffed animal. That's not where I got it though. And just to kind of put pressure down when it closes, just to kind of, if the engines took a jolt, the foam would hopefully be pressing down just on the very top of them and keep them from hitting the top of the box. Again, this is a free option. I had the box laying around. The foam, the craft foam, was left over from kids' projects, and obviously the polyfill in an empty bag. So just another option. I could probably use this now for freight cars and stuff like that. And of course the next option would be to put a piece of cardboard on top of this, and I don't know if it would be tall enough, but you could lay freight cars down on this top layer, possibly. And these actually might have even been able to been cut shorter, but I wanted to make sure that the roof line of every locomotive wasn't being damaged in any way. So here's a fourth option as well. Again, a cheaper, kind of free option. All right, so a little bit shorter this time, and still train related, but not as much on the layout. Unfortunately, I'm in the middle of you know, trying to come up with some new projects on the layout. I think the next one I want to show is going to be the way I create roads with the foam. I've got to get a hold of some more foam though. I've used most of it up, but go into detail on that, and then maybe just, you know, some details, scenery and stuff like that around the layout as I kind of hit those things. So I hope you enjoyed this. I hope it's informative. Please leave comments on what you guys do. If there's a better option, if there's something that really works well for you, please feel free to share it with others. Let me know what you think. These are what options work for me. Again, I've said it multiple times, but since I don't transport my stuff anywhere, it works because my stuff stays down here with me. But you know, if you've got a good storage solution for carrying and getting to the club or wherever else, you know, let us know. So thanks a lot for watching, and we'll see you next one.